Hey everyone! So today we have Eusebi, founder of Outvise. Now, Outvise has been an absolute pioneer when talking about the flexible workforce. They were part of this Industry 1.0 freelance and talent platform world. They are at the intersection of business / consulting / tech. Now, I do want to show you something really cool. So at Human Cloud, we just launched our market map. And if you're watching the video, look at this right now. You will see them under the consulting layer. Specifically, if you see Catalent and Link, you will see Outvise. Now, in terms of this episode, there's a couple different things. The first is seeing and learning from one of the founders and what this industry has gone through. I always love that aspect. The second part is where this industry is going. There is so much change, so much growth. From what we've seen and what we're seeing, AI and downsizing are the two forces really driving the flexible workforce. There's almost this very, very clear and direct relationship where the more AI comes about, the more that companies downsize, which leads to the more that companies augment themselves through flexible workers. And flexible workers meaning gig, freelance, fractional, and increasingly digital workers with agentic AI. So Eusebi is the perfect person to talk about this. Also from a regional perspective, Eusebi is in Spain, but his business is spread across 4 different regions. And you're going to hear him talk about that and also what it takes to succeed when you're in multiple different continents. So without further ado, I want you all to enjoy this episode, but most importantly, go drive some change. Real quick, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Greenlight.ai. We all know how important compliance is, and Greenlight.ai is the leader for compliance and EOR services, especially for talent platforms. You're going to hear about them later, but thank you to Greenlight.
Okay, technically it started in 2014, practically around 2016. I mean, the whole history of Outvise. Just as an introduction, right? I'm a telecoms engineer, and I also did an MBA, and I worked a lot as a management consultant in Europe, UK, Germany, although I was based in Barcelona, that's my home country, my hometown. But after a while, I also had a few stints in the industry as a corporate startup lead. So we did a couple of corporate startups. We sold one of them. And then I went back to, that was a tough journey, man. And I went back to consulting, which is not easy. But after the tough period in the corporate startup world, it was okay for me. I wanted a salary, right? And so I went to the Middle East. I joined a firm that I love, which is Delta Partners, FTI Delta Partners, consulting firm, focused on telecom media technology. I stayed in Dubai for 4 years. And after that, I was in South Africa for another 3 with the family. That was nice. And then, we went back home, back to Barcelona. That was around 2014. And I reconnected with Alex and Pau, my 2 other partners.
Yep.
And I said, hey guys, what do we do, right? What do we do? And it was very clear for us. We came from high value, C-level type of discussions. Our business was consulting. And we saw increasingly, right, that consulting firms had a problem, right? They had a problem of value delivery versus the cost. And as the new technologies were coming in, the knowledge of those technologies were not in those consulting firms, right? So increasingly there was value of hiring experts directly. And at the time, it so happened that the 3 founders were freelancing for our respective clients. So I proposed, hey, you know what? We should build a platform of people that are experts at TMT and create this community of experts that could deliver very specific expertise to our clients directly. And, it works like a bidding process where people put their fees, It's a marketplace, right? So we set up the company legally in 2014. So in 2015, we got our first seed funding, and some friends, some people, some executives that we knew from certain clients in the past, and we had a first full-time team, including myself, in 2016. That was a team of five. So from that moment on, I can say, we started business as Outvise. So yeah, 2016 was our real go to market.
Well, listen. So that is the perfect way to open the episode, Eusebi. So that was perfect. Little good little
Cool,
preview.
man.
So for you listeners out there, I think when did we meet, Eusebi? Was it pre-COVID or it's been forever? But
I don't know, man. I mean, when John Younger, bless him, he set up the whole thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Connecting everyone that
literally
had
the Godfather.
freelancing and
Yeah.
yeah, back then, I mean, I remember you at the very beginning.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's been since 2019, man. But I
Yeah,
think so for you listeners out there. So one of the themes that we are going to just continuously hound you, Sebi, is we call it what's old is new, meaning that the trusted models are the ones that are winning for the next 5 years. But from probably 2020 to 2023, there was a lot of hype and a lot of noise and a lot of venture money went into a lot of models that actually didn't really work and really weren't directly correlated to value. And so some of the ones I'll highlight was when you saw a lot of the hey, freelancers want their own currency, right? They want to have their own blockchain. Nah, no, they really don't. Other ones was, oh, freelancers are going to have their own operating system, create their own micro networks, team up. I fell victim to that, you said, because I created a venture-backed freelancer operating system. So I'm totally, I fell victim to that. But the trusted and true methods of high quality talent, a high client experience, and niche specialization, meaning you're the best at what your specialty is, not an everything store. Man, that is never, never, never going to go away, nor has it, it's only become more valuable. So that's one theme you said we were going to keep hammering with you because you've been doing this, like you just mentioned, right? Since 2014.
yeah,
A second theme, though, that I really, really, really want to also hammer with you is as things get more automated, more intelligent, whatever word we want to use for this AI, what is the role of a platform like yours? And you have what we always look for in the best platforms, by the way, Eusebi, is what we call founder market fit. What we define that as is if the founder or founders can sell to the end client and get a meeting, even if they're selling paper clips, then they have it. And it's usually because they were sitting in the buyer seat prior or they've been in the industry for so long. So you have this. So your insights are so uniquely tailored to what I would say is a much higher chance of success, accuracy, effectiveness, you name it, as we sort of navigate this crazy world of work, right? So let me just start with give us an overview of Outvise. Get as salesy as you want, Eusebi, because one other thing I love about this podcast is we don't bring on salespeople. So when you sell, you're going to be sounding more like you and I at a bar versus like a salesperson. But so please just sell the shit out of Outvise right now, Eusebi, and then we'll start to get deep.
yeah, brilliant. Look, I totally agree with your introduction. Right? I mean, there was this crazy moment where there's a lot of money, a lot of hype, and you just the job was to find an excuse to raise money, right? And that's it. Okay, fine. I mean, you want money to run a business. No, you don't make a business to raise money, right? So that was weird. And we have tons of examples of this. And there was a lot of investor pressure there. But
Yep.
we, specifically we were always believed on what you said. We positioned in the high value. There's a real value in understanding your customers and your experts. Some things have to be human made, right? And we can talk about many examples of that, right? So yeah, since COVID, actually, yeah, we've been building Outvise since, as I mentioned, 2016, right? Since COVID, we were running at around 5 million gross euro, and we more than doubled after COVID. We reached 13 million to 2023. We've done about 100,000 days delivered with consultants since COVID. And 95% of our business is recurring. I mean, is our clients coming back to us, contacting the platform, contacting the research team, contacting me, for example, right? Because we have these conversations. I know who they are. And when they talk about, I don't know, a digital transformation executive that has done OSS BSS migrations in a large telco, and you know that shit that happens there, right? So you can have the meaningful conversation and steer what is needed. So there's a good bond there, and when you deliver the right type of expert, because your platform and your knowledge allows you to do that, the magic happens, right? And it's great to see these experts so generously wanting to help and succeed in a project. Those human examples are amazing. I mean, when you talk to the guys, they're so grateful for the project. They talk to you about how the project is going. They share information about a client. Client also gets feedback. All that dynamic is magic, and it creates stickiness and it creates quality. Now, how much of this can you automate? Yeah, some of it you can, but not all of it, right? So the trick is in identifying what you think you can automate and what you think you need to focus on from a human perspective, right? So yeah, I mean, we've managed to evolve until today. We've been investing a lot in go to market. What is the secret channel? What's the secret source to scale up commercially, right? And the reality is, after 10 years, but significantly after COVID, right, 40% of our business comes from what we call referral channel, which is our initial network. And you know, in an industry, if you're focused, today you work at AT&T, US based, and tomorrow you might work at Verizon, right? So you move along, and in the end, the industry is large, but people know each other, right? At certain levels, there are not so many people, right? So 42% of our revenue comes from that channel, and it's no longer depending on us, and it's no longer our original network. It's just evolved naturally, right? We also have partners, commercial partners. Some of them are consultants, some of our experts, right? And we share leads and we have a deal with them so we can revenue share. That's around 20% of our business. That helps us scale. We have a lot of that in Germany. Then, of course, you need to have something more predictable. Investors love that. You need it. You need to generate leads, right? So we did scale up outbound channel. That's around 20% also of our leads. And the remaining 20% comes from our brand awareness on the social media, on LinkedIn, on the website. So that's our mix. That's today allows us to have quite a healthy number of requests every month, and to deliver that business with margins that we believe are pretty acceptable for a marketplace. We sit around 20% margin, right? So sometimes higher, sometimes slightly lower, but sits around 20%. So this is basically what Outvise is delivering. And one other key thing, obviously, is what type of experts does Outvise focus on, right? And since day one, because we come from where we come, which is telecom, media, and technology, we focus on business tech. So we have the profiles that can manage technology, that are deep experts on technology from a business point of view, but also from a technical point of view, right? Platform wise or vertical wise, or product wise. That's what we have, right? Our main vertical is still telecoms. Around 40% of our business comes from the telecom sector, and we're adding new verticals as we go. What we have not done to date, and it's a big question that always looms on our heads, is developers, coders, right? This is the volume game, right? And we're always tempted, and we use certain partners to do that, but we're still unsure how to crack that one, right? Because that's a different type of game, and it's a different positioning, different prices, potentially different margins. So yeah, we were playing with that. So yeah, this is where we are today, and we are developing some other products that can help us. But if there's chance to talk about it, we will later on.
So you just laid out, and this is where you said it would take like, I don't know, maybe 20 to 100 hours to get a salesperson to even talk about what you just talked about, and they probably never would because they wouldn't even understand it. But what you just laid out, I would say, is the whole reason that since 2012, I've stayed in this industry, right? And it's been
Really.
so tempting because, I mean, I was in San Francisco in 2016. I watched a bunch of my buddies make a ton on crypto and leave. You know, you're sitting around the next, next big companies. And so this industry has always been kind of that weird, like some of us stay, like you and I, even though it's been so painful since 2012. And I say that because what you just called out, when someone asks me, like, what's unique about flexible talent and why do we call it the human cloud and yada, 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 what you laid out literally in the succinct order is what I would say is the key value prop and what's really, really, really like fundamentally different. And that is foremost transparency. So you just told us your take rate, right? Like you just told us your take rate. You also just told us your exact growth percentages in a way that most CEOs would be like, I have to kill you if I tell you that. And so transparency, right? This industry unlocks a level of transparency that no other talent channel, talent relationship has. Incredible. The second one, though, was relationships. So that transparency then turns into a relationship, meaning you're not just a one off vendor that they throw a rack over the fence, you get it to them in the cheapest way possible, and then I'll use an American term, and then you fuck off, right? Like this is a relationship where 90+% of those companies come back to you. And I have a feeling that those companies come back to you even when they have bad news. And it's a question of you working together to build up budget rather than a yes and no to you as a vendor. So there's high transparency. There's high relationships, meaning these are your strategy, knowledge, and execution partners. The last thing, which I didn't know this about you, Eusebi, until I really started to get to know you, and that is this specialized expertise. And so, not to like shit on the existing external talent channels, but most when we talk about like VMS to MSP to then most vendors, very seldom do you see real specialized expertise. They usually are either everything stores, and some of the V1 of freelance platforms are that, or they are like staffing, staffing suppliers or attempt to hire a vendor, but there's not that specialized expertise where for you it's telco. And so if you're sitting in a telco leadership position, even if you don't care about talent, Eusebi, these people want to meet with you because you're seeing what their competitors are doing and they need to meet with you. So
Yeah.
I just want to call that out for all you listeners out there. You're listening because you believe that there's serious technology transformation happening and talent is a key driver of your business. Why flexible talent? Well, transparency, a strong relationship, and specialized expertise. So, Eusebi, you just made our life so much easier. Um, Now, let's get into either like big wins or what you've seen really move the needle. Because, all right, confirmed that this model is better, it's more efficient, it's the future of work, whatever. But tell us about some exact either use cases or big client wins or customer wins. Please keep bragging because you're not a salesperson.
Well, before I go to the big wins, right, or the key things that made us move forward, right, in a long step or a big step. I mean, the way you laid out transparency, trust, specialization. I mean, I never thought of it in that way because you always think marketplace needs to be transparent because it's a marketplace, right? But the reality is that if you want to remain, you need to gain trust. As a management consultant, the day your customer, your client trusts you, you win the client, right? And without transparency, there's no trust. So the only purpose of transparency is getting that trust from the experts and from the clients. Transparency is also a problem because when you talk to procurement, they just bite on it, right? Okay, so that's just your margin. Okay, let's talk about your margin. Let's lower your margin, and then you have to fight back, right? And do whatever you can, right? In our case, also specialization is another key pillar for earning that trust. What's the extra value? I cannot imagine a director, a senior person writing down on a platform the key requirements of their problem, right? And spending 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes thinking about those key requirements. They'll just thrash in a few lines, go, right? And we need to complete that and have a discussion. So clearly, I mean, these three things that you mentioned are key for us, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the big wins, I don't know if there's one key factor that made us move from 5 to 7 to 10 to 13. I'm not sure it's that, because it's been quite gradual, right? There's been certain dynamics which allowed more hybrid work post-COVID. That helped, that's for sure. I think there's a general dynamic of cost efficiency. So they see the value of experts, and there's a, market is being educated. So the market is increasingly more comfortable with hiring these experts, right, directly. And big companies already include certain freelance platforms as part of the vendor system. And that's been happening. It wasn't there 8 years ago or 6 years ago, right? In certain markets like Spain, which is one of our markets, 1/3 of our business is Spain. Those markets might be a little bit more lagging behind, but now they are maturing. There's more players there teaching the market. So I think the environment is more receptive for our type of business, right? That's one thing. The other thing is we've been managing a lot of tier one clients. So yeah, as I mentioned, our main vertical is telecoms, but we have insurance companies, we have utility companies, we have pharma. So we're adding other verticals. And the good news is that telecom experts are like a multi-purpose pocket knife, right? They can do anything because they've been doing all the digital transformation from day one. It's one of the drivers of the digital transformation. So these guys can do many things, right? So it's easier for us to add additional verticals. But we have these tier one clients. Tier one meaning, I don't know, we don't have AT&T and Verizon, right? Because we're not operating in the US, but the equivalent of AT&T and Verizon in Europe and in the Middle East. So the number one operator in each of the countries, which is typically our client. Number two, in many cases, these are big guys, right? Some of them are multi-country groups. So, okay, we get in, we have these frame agreements, we start talking to people, and word of mouth, you do a good project here, pass on to the colleague, you have a second project there, starts building up. So definitely in the last few years, we've been growing our share of wallet in these type of clients, right? And repeating and growing. That's one thing. The other thing is that in certain regions, in our case, in the Middle East, for example, sometimes we have requests for longer term projects, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Okay, we were not ready for that. But then we set up legal entities in Qatar, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia. And we have Heidi joined us a year ago. She's the country manager based in Dubai, right? So we have a person there close to the clients, right? I go often, but she's there like every single day. So the fact that we have these legal entities and the fact that we can provide longer term engagements, some transformation projects last 2-3 years, right? You're not going to hire full-time these people because then once the project is over, it's done, right? And it's not always like 200 coders that you can have from Bangalore, right? You need people, project managers, architects, you need higher level people or customer experience experts, right? So we can do this through those legal entities. That consolidates business nicely and allows us to grow longer term and preserving margins, right? So I think for us, there's not one single event, but it's just doing the job and keeping focused and creating that trust, and eventually, you grow. That's how it works for us.
Hey everyone, real quick, I want to talk about the risk that is involved with an independent workforce. No matter where you are, whether it's the US, whether it's Brazil, whether it's the EU, whether it's London, there is risk in how you classify and how you work with individuals. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just paying someone. The classification, the actual collaboration, the contracts, the payments, everything is intertwined and must be connected in a way that doesn't get you in trouble with the tax authorities, regulatory authorities, and even potentially class action lawsuits. There are numerous examples of this. Just search classification lawsuit on wherever you want to use, and you'll get plenty. Which is why today's sponsor, Greenlight.ai, is the modern EOR, modern compliance solution for the modern workforce. There's 4 things that we want to call out when hiring an independent worker that you need. And that is, you need to onboard, you need to classify, you need to send payments, and you need to manage this global workforce. It's more than just one person, and Greenlight has all of that covered. All right, I want you to head over to greenlight.ai and tell them Human Cloud sent you. Let me ask you a really funny question, Eusebi. So this is I'm asking this from a frame of reference of a leader that is towing the line between every single leader listening to our podcast, or most, has a P&L. So a leader's perspective who, I have a P&L. Talent is one of my directives, but it's not the main directive, and it's not what I get promoted on. So when my boss asks, how'd you do this year? I can't say, look, I hired 100 freelancers. That doesn't get me promoted, right? But I need to get more done, keep these, I'm probably getting my budget lowered while expecting to have the same amount of productivity. Yeah. And I'm expected to have a pretty mind-blowing sort of, innovative strategy, innovative product feature service that we're coming out with. So this is me, okay? What I'm going to ask you is, what if you don't exist? Meaning, what do I do today? And when I do work with you, what are the tripwires? Meaning, what are going to be some of the mines that I can't see, but that is inevitably going to happen? So let's start with, if Outvise never existed, right? Flexible talent never existed. What are your clients, what would they have to do? And then let's try to not be rosy and just dig into what goes wrong. And because what I love about you is you're going to tell us, because if you don't, then you're selling, right? Things are obviously going to go wrong. So let's start with that of hey, if you didn't exist, Eusebi, what would be the alternative?
Okay, if I wouldn't exist, if Outvise wouldn't exist, I'll give you 2 examples that we had in the last 2 months. We have a telco in Saudi Arabia that, because of compliance and because of regulations and mandate and maturity, they need to set up a whole data governance project framework, right? Processes, policies, guidelines, SLAs, the damn thing, right? And this is a company that is not super well structured. It's a little bit chaotic. So you need to navigate the people, right? It's not like I land in a process and, I ask for information A, and then 2 days later I'll get it, and then I'll produce a document and you'll approve it. No, it's just not like that. It's pretty chaotic. So if they had to run that engagement with a consulting firm, literally would have cost them at least 5 or 6 times more.
And when we say 5 or 6 times more, are we talking 500K, 1.2 million? We talking NEOM of 200 plus million and no actual results? What are we talking figure wise?
Okay. In this particular case, we're not talking those huge numbers, but it could be easily $500,000.
That's a lot. That's
a lot. And in our case, it's happening under 60.
Yes. And let me call out that cost is one thing, but I'm assuming the speed, meaning it'll probably take a consulting firm 6 to 12 months. It will probably take you 1 to 6.
4 months. 4 months delivered. And what we're doing now, obviously, they have an execution phase afterwards. So the consultant is there, and there's a good chance to carry on with an execution phase. So that's a real example that's happening today. Yeah. Another example that happened actually in the last 2 months, right? We're talking about the equivalent of a Verizon, right? A huge telco, right? And these guys had to carve out some business units, right? So the frame of reference, legal frame of reference, the delegations of authorities, all this had to be rethought, because now it's not a one monolithic company, it's divided. So who decides what, up to which extent you can spend, all those type of decisions. So we brought in a legal expert that has done this 4, 5, 6, 7 times, right? And they were so impressed, because there comes transparency, trust, and specialization. This guy is a gem. This guy works extremely productively. I mean, what he delivers in 1 hour is what us would deliver in 3, 4, 5 hours, right? The guy's a machine. He's done it before so many times. He's super honest. He's going to tell you what he thinks. He has no politics invested here, right? So he's going to tell you what he thinks, what you should do, right? And he has tons of experience doing that. So they were so impressed that they engaged with him 2 or 3 times. The job is completed. So now we got a request from another department in that same company to run a similar project for a different function, revenue assurance and fraud management, right? Again, at a fraction of the cost. In the Middle East, for example, I talk a lot about the Middle East because this is a specific region I work for, right? But the typical fees for a management consultant would be easily 60,000, 70,000, 100,000 a month. One of our guys with the same type of experience can do the job for 20 to 30,000.
And let me call out, it's not because they're getting paid less. It's because of all the legacy infrastructure that's been required.
And that's why we are transparent, right?
Yeah.
Because our margin is flat, right? So, hey, all that you're paying goes to the pocket, in the pockets of this excellent professional. We just have our margin.
Yep. Let me double click, Eusebi. So here's one very, very, very important aspect that I would say is going to be one of the mines and tripwires that I know you know how to solve for. But if it wasn't you, and it was like everything we were saying so far, if it wasn't you, then what might happen next is this. You ready? So I hear the cost savings, 5 to 6x cost savings. I hear the accuracy rate, meaning that that person is actually incented to win the execution work. So the proposal they give or the playbook they give is not going to set them up for failure. So I hear that, right? This all sounds so good, so good, so good. But the reality is I need to have a lot of data to get my boss to approve this. And I have a bunch of consulting firms out there who are paying people full time to go win those proposals. And so congrats, you gave me a list of 3 people, but I have KPMG, PwC, McKinsey, you name it, that gave me this beautiful, lavish 50 to 150 page proposal with nice gifts attached and suites attached. And look, we have a suite at the baseball game now and all this beautiful stuff. So my question is, Eusebi, boy, those results sound good. How do we get from thank you, you have my problem? Are you creating the proposal for them? Are the individuals creating the proposal? Does the client have to create the proposal? Walk us through this phase, because this is the biggest tripwire that I know you know how to solve for.
Well, I know how to solve it partially.
Stop being so honest.
No. I am honest. Some projects will always go to the names.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way out of it, right? I mean, people that work in corporates, you need to go to the board. Yep. The partners know board members. There's a certain discussion going on there. It's not just about the rational decision. I mean, many decisions are not rational. So,
none are. Only
the ones we take.
Only what coffee I get is a rational decision. Everything else is pretty damn irrational.
Right. So I mean, I don't have to say certain names are always going to win certain projects. Yeah. That's what it is, right? So the way we play this is, hey, fine, okay, you get the strategy from McKinsey, Bain, BCG, get that strategy. Okay, you know what's going to happen next, right? Nobody's going to implement that strategy. It's going to sit on the table, right? And people are going to say, and people are going to they're going to get increasingly frustrated by another deck that cost $1.50 million and is not being implemented. Because in the end, we're much simpler, right? Yeah. I mean, we work, we do our daily job, and we're not sending rockets to the moon, right? Yeah. So implementation is done by people that have their daily jobs, right? So there's a huge gap and cost gap between those guys and the guys that do the work, right?
Yeah.
So this is where we come in.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. This is the strategy. The strategy said you need to carve out the business units.
Yeah.
Let's carve out the business units because you're the expert, the client. You are the expert. You know that you need to reframe the delegation of authority, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll bring you the expert that will do that, right? That's for the big corporates. That's the tier ones. And this is how it works. The business we're getting for the tier ones are people that are executing transformation, not necessarily designing the transformation.
Which, let me
That's
double quick. So if executing transformation, and then not to get too geeky, but so if we were to put an algorithm into this, right, and we were to say, hey, you want to get your organization to embrace flexible talent. Okay, so if execution focused, then two, sentiment around pain of getting another spreadsheet, which there's a lot of that sentiment, Eusebi. That is not like a thing you have to
oh
explain. Literally, if you say,
no.
oh, are you sick of another consulting deck? That costed you $500,000 for a PowerPoint presentation that you used to do in business school. And you said, I have one too, so I'm totally going to ride on both of us. If I get one more MBA to send me a nice presentation deck with a bunch of assumptions because they've never actually done it, I'm going to blow my brain out. But so this pain is felt. So that for you listeners out there, like that is your algorithm to find opportunities that flexible talent could fix and where
Yeah.
Outvise comes in. And I know you do this. You help with the scoping of the work, right? So it's not as simple as like it's not an auction bidding marketplace, right? Where you're like, oh, look, here's 100 individuals. Now sort through them yourself and whatever. Like you're helping with the scoping, right?
Well, look, to give you another real example, very recent one, right? Another company said, hey, you know what? Auditors came in and we had to review our processes because apparently, surprise, surprise, we don't have them documented.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so
Who's
you
the
need to
poor soul who's
document.
going to do that? Yeah.
Who's going to do that, right? It's a surprise that you don't have these processes documented. Anyway, so we need to do this in X amount of months or weeks, right? Okay, so look, I'll ask a few experts, guys that have Six Sigma belts, process
Yeah.
optimization, RPI, RPA, sorry. In this case, the relevant vertical, right? So people that had a good match. And I asked the expert, you know what? Can you draft a work plan, in time, what you would do, what you would need, the deliverables? So the guy was scoping, right? And this was delivered to the client. Hey, look, if you want to do this project properly, this is the timeline that would be working out, and these are the activities. Now, if you want to have a meeting with the expert and discuss how this actually works, then you can negotiate if you can do it in more time, less time, if you need to, drop some activities or not.
Yeah.
But that's it. So definitely scoping all the experts. What we do with experts, we do scoping,
Yeah.
we do preliminary workshops.
Yeah.
I have another CTO, right? This CTO has the impression that his NOC, network operating center, is oversized. The OPEX is too high, right? So the guy says, oh my gosh, I mean, I think I need to do something to lower those costs, right? Okay, I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to share a few NOC experts with you with the same type of business line.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with these guys. Ask them what are the key levers that they would look into. Ask them what type of back of the envelope assessment they would do, and they might be even open to come with you a couple of days, check it out on site, and make a proposal. Man, if that's not powerful,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
You know what the alternative would be? So if not that, then they would have to. And it's funny you said is a lot of times we're getting the alternative people coming to us saying, "Hey, Human Cloud, can you do the work that we just sold that we could do?" But so one of those is if not doing that, then they would go to a big consulting firm. They would do a vendor analysis. Part of that vendor analysis, and it would cost between 500 to a million. Part of that vendor analysis is that they will do a 10-person call down on an expert network. The expert network charges $3,000 an hour. It actually is valuable because they're picking up patterns of what these impressive individuals would say. But the reality is, instead of if they can skip all that stuff, if they just go to you and have one or a couple experts draft up the actual execution plan rather than just saying a bunch of stuff, right? So,
Absolutely. And I'll give you choice,
yeah,
interview them, and just work with the one you
yeah,
like the most.
yeah. It's
I mean,
crazy.
It's
It's
crazy.
so listen, Eusebi, here's the last question for you, okay? And I think this is where you have, I mean, it's obvious now in the episode, right? Like you have such a unique vantage point, and I mean, my nerdy brain is just going to say you have such a higher chance of accuracy because of the real data that you've actually done. But so the question is, what is the future of platforms? And the reason I ask this is because if we were to look at the full landscape of flexible talent, right, we would say 6 years ago, it was just marketplaces, right? It was like Upwork, Fiverr, you, a couple others like Huddle and others. But the reality is it kind of was just marketplaces. Well, now if we were to say what's flexible talent, there's actually 14 different segments. And we would break it down by saying things like, well, all the way to the left, you have digital workers. So you have AI doing exactly what humans used to do. You then have your gig marketplaces, high task based, usually low complexity. You then kick it over. You even have some weird things like what we call flexibility as a service. So you're paying per PowerPoint slide, right? So there's all these different segments. You then have your vertical, which is what you look like, specialized, you name it. And then at the infrastructure level, you're starting to see things like EORs and payrolls and freelance management systems, right? So this once little industry that you and I used to love is now effing massive. There is a lack of transparency. There's massive fragmentation. And one of the questions that's always out there is, what will this industry become? I will tell you in 2017, 2018, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, are us and the Corp Strat team were looking at who should they acquire to create the singular platform, right?
That's a
I don't
big
think
one.
that's going to happen. Don't think that's going to happen. But what's the purpose
Was
of the
that one of
platform?
those consulting firms' decks?
Yeah, I know. Of course,
A
there was a
singular platform. Okay.
dude, it was a 200 slide deck, right? And 100 of those slides were each individual potential we could acquire, and it just didn't pan out. I don't ever see a world where there will be one master Amazon for flexible talent. Can't imagine that. But from your perspective, what is the purpose, right, of a platform, and what will platforms become? And the reason I ask this for our listeners is so that they know where they should dedicate their time, because they look at this industry and they go, holy crap, there's 2,000 plus solutions. I'd rather just call my procurement lead and have them tell me who I should work with, right? Because it's so big, they don't want to spend their time navigating this industry. But
Yeah.
someone like you makes sure that they're focusing on the right things and not focusing on things that will waste their time. But so, from your perspective, what are platforms going to become?
I mean, yeah, that's a big leap forward, right? Okay, I can talk about what I think we will focus on, right?
Yep.
Obviously, there's, as you mentioned, no, very different segments, very different focus, themes. So each company has its strategy. Some will succeed, some will perish, disappear, get integrated. So I don't have that view with any certainty, right? What is for sure that this type of work is on demand, right? I mean, that's the common theme, right? You don't have you use the talent when you need it, right? Now, what type of talent? Okay, it could be anything, right? It could be people looking at hot dogs and saying it's a hot dog, it's not a hot dog, right? or
Favorite
or it, or it could be the higher value type of talent, which personally, this is the bet we have, right? Why? Because look, hey, there's no substitute to talent, right? There's no artificial talent, right? There's artificial intelligence that can do things, but talent is the combination of knowledge, of experience, of soft skills, of interactions, of physical drive.
Yeah.
You need to get things done, right? That is only happening in people, right? And some people are more commodity in a way. Some tasks are more commodity. So the hot dog, yes, no, it's a commodity. Anybody can recognize a hot dog, or potentially anything could recognize a hot dog. But when it comes to driving a transformation and leading with multiple vendors and people and teams and facing a situation that you've faced in the past, and everybody's in panic, and yeah, keep calm. I know how to do things. This is irreplaceable. So I think that type of talent will remain. Now, Will it remain on an on-demand mode? Absolutely yes, because the more precious the talent is, the more valuable it is. And if I have something valuable, I want to get the highest return I can for my value. So on demand is higher return from the talent that fixed in a company, right? Unless you have shares and you believe in the project, which is a different story, right? So there will be that talent and there will be on demand. Now, when there's high value talent on demand, so this is where we fall. What does the future look like? Okay, so it's true that our margins are thin. So we need to find a way to get critical mass to make sure that as a platform we're sustainable, because we do add value to both parties.
Yep. Yep.
Right? We need to exist there to add value to both parties. We add value to the clients being a single point of contact. We add value to the clients certifying the experts and providing the right references, understanding the needs, matching it. Okay, so maybe someone thinks this can be fully automated, but I can tell you so many examples of cases where you need to interview someone, you need to onboard on a project, you need to look after the visas, maybe they have a family, maybe you need to look for a school, maybe there's some skill missing, so you need to go and find this additional skill. I mean, come on, this is not an obvious thing to do. And for the experts, it's important for them to find potential clients, projects that they like, and we are one of the sources. God forbid we are the only source. No way, right? We are one of the sources. So we have a future there. So we need to focus as Outvise in getting scale, getting consistent and solid profitability. And that is driven by scale and driven by a level of automation. Now, when we talk about automation, which is doing more with the same people or doing the same with less people, right? In the end, it's how much OpEx, how much cost you need to run the business, right? So I mean, we've arrived to the conclusion that the client-facing automation is very limited in our case. We need to generate that trust. We need to understand the needs. We need to manage the service. We need to manage the situations, right? From the operations side, there's a lot we can do. And AI, I think, has opened the door to some potential use cases that could be really relevant for us, right? But then we need to take that generic use case and put in all our experience and our uniqueness to have our differentiating factor. So for me, that's how I see that future, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I could tie the whole episode together, I would come back to the first thing we mentioned, which was that what you embody is a shift from talent being fixed slash full time, not transparent, and I'm going to say boring, meaning like having to go through traditional HR procurement channels, very, give away from that person who actually needs it. But so going from that to a transparent, relationship driven, specialized world. Now that's a massive transformation, right?
Massive.
So
Yes.
now what I would say the bridge in getting there, and this is where you come in, is that when this works, I'm going to say by 2030, every single telco will be running with 80% of their talent leveraging an elastic network of, I don't know if it's going to say on demand, but an elastic network of independent workers that scale up and down depending on the business need. And that works best for both the talent and the company. And you are creating that. And I think that's exactly what, as you laid out what the future looks like, the job of the platform: find that talent, nurture that talent, mobilize that talent. Everything else you guys maybe don't do, but you're always going to be the best at finding the best talent, nurturing the best talent, and mobilizing that best talent. So it's an exciting time, Eusebi. I think, last question, probably the most important. Where can our listeners find you and Outvise?
Find me in. So how to find us?
Yeah, where
Okay,
do they
well,
find you? We're going to put in the show notes, but make sure you tell them.
Okay, yeah. So obviously we have the anonymized way, which is our website, no, www.outvise.com. There's my email, ELLENSA@outvise.com, which is my name, Eusebi, and my surname, Llensa. That's how we do our emails, right? And I'm based in Barcelona. So if you guys come along, drop me a message, drop me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to meet anyone. We have team in Dubai. I go very often to the Middle East and Africa. We have team in Germany. That's our second market. So we have one big market in Middle East, one big market in Germany, and another big market in Spain. So that's how to find me. But I have my other colleagues, my other partners that are managing Spain and Germany. So yeah, that's how the best way to find us.
I love it. Eusebi, first of many, thank you so much for hopping on. We will see you soon. And listeners, everyone go reach out to Eusebi ASAP. Yep. Go to Barcelona. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way, right? Go to Barcelona and make him buy you dinner. So Eusebi, thank you for hopping on, my friend.
Happy to do that. Matthew, thanks a lot for your time. And yeah, I enjoyed this a lot.